Welcome to the Core Outdoors podcast. I'm your host, Christian Rawls. On this podcast, you'll hear the stories and experiences of entrepreneurs and leaders in the outdoor industry. This podcast is a production of CORE, the Kootenay Outdoor Recreation Enterprise. CORE is a nonprofit organization based in the Kootenays of British Columbia. CORE's mission is to support the growing network of gear and apparel makers, designers, and entrepreneurs within the Kootenays. And now a quick announcement before we jump into the show. Registration is open for the CORE Summit taking place in Kimberley, BC on October 3rd and 4th. The summit is the only conference in Canada where the outdoor bike and ski industries come together to connect and learn from one another. If you're in the outdoor bike or ski industry, or you want to be in these industries, I highly recommend you check it out. I promise you won't regret it. You can learn more and register now by going to coreoutdoors.org and go to the summit menu item at the top. I hope to see you there. Okay, now onto the podcast. Today's conversation is with Greg McDonald. Greg is a general manager of Ridley Cycle, an independent bike shop with 3 locations in Calgary and a successful online store. Greg is also a board member representing Canada for the National Bike Dealers Association based in the US. Our conversation dives into the perspective of independent retailers and the ups and downs that they experienced over the last 4 years. Some of the topics we cover include the role of independent sales reps, where the opportunities are for the smaller brands in the industry, how smaller brands should approach selling at wholesale, as well as the P2 Mastermind program that Greg is part of through the National Bike Dealers Association. Please enjoy this conversation with Greg McDonald. My first question for you is, what's your best memory on a bicycle?
That's a great question. Yeah, I think the trip to Peru was amazing when we did that. I think anytime I've had an opportunity probably to ride in Squamish, and like when I was working for Mountain X and we were working like Crankworks booths and stuff like that, and we would do the show, everybody would work super hard and we'd get back to Squamish and we would always go for a bike ride. And yeah, I went on this bike ride with Louie and Andrew once, and then we went to the pub after, and I had my truck, and everybody left their gear inside the truck after, and that truck never smelled new again after that. It just smelled like everybody's like 100% humidity 6 p.m. bike ride gear.
So your fondest memory of cycling is the gaunch of Louie and
like,
Andrew.
Yeah. Stinky bike ride.
Sweet. That's good. I have very fond memories of that trip to Peru as well. So thanks for bringing that back up. So you are now at Ridley's. Fast forward to current day. You're now at Ridley's, a chain of how many locations? There's 3 locations in Calgary?
3, yeah.
What was the trajectory of your career that led you to Ridley's, and what brought you into the bike industry in the original?
Yeah, I gave you my like Coles Notes life story. Was super into bikes as a kid. Worked at Bow Cycle for 5.5 years while I was going through the end of high school, and came back for every summer during university. And then as I was finishing up school, just kind of like making a decision about what I wanted to do. And the opportunities were either like keep going to school and get my master's in like contemporary social theory.
I don't know. Why didn't you stay with that? It sounds so engaging.
Man, I don't remember any of the like sociology jargon from those times anymore. It's purged my brain. But yeah, do that. Get a certificate in social work, become a social worker, or try and find a career in what I love to do for fun, which is riding. And then I chased down, was trying to get a sales rep job, had no idea what sales reps did. I had a pseudo interview at a show once, and he's like, "Oh, are you thinking about being an in-house rep or an agent?" And I was like, "I don't know what that means. What is I don't know." And then ended up reaching out to NRG, who's a distributor out at Nelson. And then they connected me with Louie, who owns Mountain X. And then, just pestered Louie until he would hire me. And then started there. And together we built a standalone cycling division of the sales agency. And we grew through that anywhere from, when we started, and it was just NRG through brands like Light in Motion, Osprey, etc., until we finally got Ibis, which is sort of our big, needed a main bike line. So grew Ibis in Western Canada. And then, towards the end of my time at Mountain Exposure, we were also branching into distribution and 3PL work. We were the PNW 3PL warehouse distributor for Canada for a bit. And then, towards the end of my time there, I just really felt like I was ready for the next challenge. And I also felt like I didn't understand enough about what happens in cycling retail, and what happened to my product after I sold it in. Like, I think you can summarize it super easy. It's like, you sell in the line, you work on selling it through, and then you do it again over and over and whatever. But I didn't understand like everything else it takes to move all of that inventory or create all those sales or make, have all the staff to do it and all this other stuff. So yeah, I knew the owners of Ridley Cycle because they were an IBIS customer. And yeah, we started chatting about it, asked them what they're up to, what they needed, and felt like it was a good fit. So I started there as operations and business development and did that until 2022, I think. And I asked to be general manager and wrote a job description for it. And I've held that role for, 2 years now. So now it's, operating an independent bicycle retail business with 2 stores and a strong e-commerce business.
Okay. Sorry, there's 2 stores or 3 stores?
3 stores. Did I say 2?
You said 2.
There's 2 stores in Calgary and 1 in Okotoks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So there's 3 stores and then online. And so how long have you been there? How long have you been on the retail side of the bike industry? How many years is that?
5 years, 5.5, plus bow cycle time. So 10 and I don't know. 10
right. But on the Ridley side, it's really, because my next question is like, what's life been like in the last 4 years of the bicycling industry? But it seems like you got like a year and a half of just probably pretty interesting. Oh, this is cool. I like this. Mm-hmm. And then COVID and you're like, whammo.
I would say that first year and a half was really hard, like harder than COVID times, in my opinion.
For the business or for you?
Both.
Oh.
We had like lots of work to do when I started there, just like optimizing processes and like who's accountable to what, and just kind of like trying to right size all the staff and the positions they held and what their responsibilities were. And it was like an absolute grind to try and like, wring out every last drip of profitability in the bicycle industry business. And then COVID came, and it was, when it happened, we were about to run our like seasonal sale, and then like our like shutdown started to happen a week before ish. So we like pivoted to running that sale online. And then because none of us knew it was going to happen, there was kind of conversations about like, okay, what do we do for, layoffs? Like, what is this going to look like for us to get through the next X amount of time? And I was working from home, and I spent almost all my time like self-educating on e-commerce and like, okay, how do we do this? Like, how do I, one, keep my job, keep my pay, do all this, and like help the business? And so, it was like Google Academy, it was YouTube videos, it was like all this stuff of how like, running ads, like driving, like all this stuff. And so, we like kind of hit the gas pedal in June of 2020, and it just blew up. And so we've been able to do that. And then my biggest kind of like goal is to maintain it. So we're coming out of post-COVID, demand was bonkers, like, return on ad spend is like 20 to 1. Like, it's crazy. Like, cost per conversion is $4. It was easy. It was easy mode. Customers wanted to buy stuff, and we had all sorts of challenges, like managing queues and ETAs and all this stuff. And we had systems and processes to do the best, like to our best job to customers that we could. And then it ended, and now it's lots of the flavor of 2019. Of like, okay, we got to grind it out, like, and be super conscientious of all of our costs. It's so delicate, and like every mistake is a big mistake when there's not a ton left at the end. It feels a little bit like that, and then it also feels a lot of like, okay, how do we keep going? How do we keep growing? And how do we protect ourselves to make sure that we can continue being a profitable business and can keep reinvesting in our growth,
right? Even
in this time when it's hard for everyone.
Hard for everyone in the cycling industry, or hard for everyone in e-commerce?
Hard for everyone in the cycling industry, I would say.
Okay. What is it? Because I mean, this is definitely a topic that people talk about a lot, and I'm very curious to get your perspective on what is going on in the cycling industry. Like, I'm an outsider, but I have a lot of friends on the inside, and I get all these different perspectives. What's your take on what's going on on the industry right now, and then what do you think kind of got us here?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of like what happened with all the crazy like lead times that manufacturers had to get in the queue for. Like, we heard rumors of 500-day lead times.
Whoa.
So they're pushing out multiple model years to try and get product rolling. We would see like just crazy POs being placed against future orders from everybody. Like, yep, I'll take it, whatever. 100 of these, like, it was wild. And we had...
Sorry, so you mean like retailers posting POs?
Yep. Like,
for kind of outrageous numbers of stuff that they were selling in the height of COVID.
Yeah, exactly. And being like, okay, well, I have to get in the queue for this bike if I want to have it in 8 months. So I'm going to order 50 or 60 or 100, whatever. I would say that the brand that served us the best through all of it was always kind of being like, hey, you need to adjust it down. You can't have that much. Like, are you really going to take this? And so they forced us to like, you have to adjust it down to this level. And we adjusted. And at the time, we knew it was the right thing, but it wasn't super fun. And it was kind of a pain. But I think a lot of credit due to them for like observing what was happening really early.
Sorry, would you say, who is that? What brand was that?
That was Trek.
Okay. And were they doing it from a trying to manage demand, or are they doing it from a business relationship standpoint?
I think it's just managing. I think it's managing like inventory forecasts.
So they were basically telling everybody like, whoa, slow down. This is too much.
Yep. Like you can only have X of, like, giving us guidelines of how much back orders we're actually allowed to have and all this kind of stuff.
So do you think retailers were just trying to chase the turn and the margin and like, okay, we were doing this, let's go get it. We need that inventory. I got to commit to it. Was there a feeling 100%. Of like, oh, this is the new normal in the cycling industry? Or is it like, do you know what I mean? Because from the hindsight 2020, it's like, that doesn't make sense. Why were we doing that?
Well, I think that one of the challenging things too was that it lasted for 2.5 years.
Sure. That's not a blip.
Like it's not like, it's kind of bigger than a flash in the pan.
For sure.
Maybe from just like the human behavior part, it was just really hard to start taking that away from people.
Sure.
And we did it too. And like we would, okay, I can't get bikes from this person. I need to go get bikes from this person. And my analogy was always like, well, I love shopping at my grocery store up the street, but when they don't have any food, I'm going to go to the grocery store over there too. And that's that in different places for different brands. But yeah, I think it was just, it was like anything you got, you pre-sold. You had crazy deposits against your orders. You're flush with cash. And then all of a sudden, all that stuff started to turn itself off. You had all those outstanding POs still. And different brands manage that in different ways. But lots of them tried to make you take it. And I think, everyone is accountable for what happened. And you write some, bonkers PO that you can't actually take anymore. You bear some responsibility for what you wrote. And at the same time, so does the brand. Like the brand bears responsibility too for forecasting it wrong and taking those orders and not saying anything about them, or, not being able to fulfill orders for 2 years. And then all of a sudden, here's, 2 years worth of orders all at once. Here you go. Thanks. That's due in 180 days.
The word that comes to my mind is greed. And I don't mean that but it's kind of what happens is that people were like, oh, look, this is what's going to happen. Let's do it. Let's chase it. And so that's what brought us here. We're like, well, what's the current state now? Like, when did you start to first see the signs of like, oh, so this is really going to slow down? And then where are we at now? Because it kind of feels like the skids are fully in place right now.
Yeah, we saw, like, we did not a hiring freeze, but a purchasing freeze in March of 2022. March of 23 was when we started to see, we would see these indicators of like 12 speed chains. That was something that like you couldn't get them. Like it took so long, you couldn't get them. And all of a sudden you're seeing like a 90-day, 60-day, 30-day in stock. And you had this short window of like, oh, I have an outstanding order for 150 of these chains. And they're showing like all these lead times shrinking up plus excess inventory. That's when we started to see it. And that's when we started to do purchasing freezes, cancel all existing like outstanding POs. And we did at one point in time, we had like just a stop ship. Like you can't ship anything to us without calling us, because there's so many POs out in the world that all of the stuff would just show up. And obviously we have all of those POs in our point of sale system. Like we can manage them too, but there was just so much of it. Yeah. So we started to see it then. I don't know what it's like to be a manufacturer or a brand. I don't know what, you have to do to make those, factory time for your manufacturer. Like, I don't know what all the rules and regulations are for them. So I don't know what flexibility they had to cancel stuff. But yeah, I think a lot of times, like, yeah, they had dealers saying, yeah, we'll take it. So they ordered it. And then dealers said, I don't want that anymore. And then they have tons of stuff. Yeah, it's a combination of it. Like, everyone made mistakes and everybody did great, right, for a long time. And I think how you chose to deal with the great times during those 2.5 years kind of put you in a position to be successful, or to have, a couple pretty crappy years coming out of that.
Right. Like, did you put it under the mattress or did you buy a boat?
Exactly.
Yeah. Hopefully there's under the mattress was the majority, though I know it's tempting not to. When people are having their like banner years, it's easy for people to lose sight of what's happening. So what do you think is going to happen going forward? Like in the next, like, when do you see it right sizing, and like, when do you think it's going to like work itself out? And do you think we're going to see some major shifts and changes on the brand side or on the retailer side? Do you think, are there going to be some corpses at the end of this?
I think it's going to take us like at least until the end of this year would be my guess. Maybe a little bit longer.
What are you doing differently? Like, what do you think, what are you doing specifically differently? And what do you think retailers and brands should be doing differently in the meantime and then in the future? I mean, I know you have a lot of opinions on this, like, and this is why I want to have a conversation with you, because you have a lot of opinions about a lot of different things in the cycling industry. So let's go through your opinions one by one.
Perfect. So a couple of things that we've done is like, one of my things we did great was we opened a new store in 22. And that was really great because we got to ride this wave of success, build this great customer base, hire lots of great staff. And that store is continuing to provide us with lots of growth. And that's really great. And lots of the ways that we've changed stuff now is in like purchasing habits and like negotiating with vendors.
Ooh, let's talk about the negotiating part.
Okay. So with that one is like, we're spending lots of time kind of like, we're small, right? We're not MEC, we're not FGL, whatever. But in certain scenarios, we've written vendor agreements on certain things. So we've asked for like, I'm going to place this PO, but I want price protection. So if you lower the price, you're going to credit me back for the difference so I can maintain whatever margin it is that we were like, I want to say promise, because we don't promise anything, but we were supposed to realize off the hop. So we've set up some of that stuff. We've sometimes with certain brands, we've negotiated our own term agreement. It's like, I don't want this, but I want this instead. But yeah, I think anytime we see a certain amount of risk to a PO, we'll ask for some guarantees against, where brands will say like, oh, we found out that the price elasticity for this product's not where it used to be. It needs to be this much. So you need to sell it for $1,000 less now, when we paid what it was supposed to be worth when it was $1,000 more. So we're trying to protect ourselves more against like what we think is going to continue to happen, and also be smarter about leveraging our position in the industry, where it's like, we pay our bills on time, we're a strong retailer, we'll do well for your brand, we sell on e-com, like we check lots of great boxes. And I think there's lots of leverage, and I think maybe it's getting less and less, but I feel like there was massive leverage placing POs within the last 6 months, where you could ask for all sorts of different things just to get someone to put more bikes against the books.
Like the guarantees, talk to me about a little bit, like the guarantees, like what does that look like? Because what happens is, from my standpoint, is the retailer orders the bike, like pre-orders the bikes at this fixed wholesale price. Mm-hmm. And then the brand ships them to you however many months later and says, oh, by the way, this is the new retail price of that bike that you've already bought it. Let's just say, for easy math, you bought the bike for $1,000. You thought you were going to sell it for $2,000, but now we're saying you got to sell it for $1,500. Is that mm-hmm. what happens? So,
yeah, and then they'll credit us back or provide us in product in lieu or whatever, but we recover the lost margin in price reduction.
But basically, there's other retailers out there who aren't on top of the game and missing out on that, and they're just getting hit with the lost margin.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
I don't know how many other people set those expectations with their brands when they placed semi-risky POs.
Right. And at what level?
It was mostly like, it was high end. is where we spend a lot of time focusing on those things.
Sure.
Where, hey, yeah, an XT bike used to be 12 grand, but that bike's 8 grand now. Because the market is saying they'll only pay 8 grand for it. So you want to keep selling bikes, so that's what you got to do. And we just have to make sure we're protecting ourselves so that we can have great product for all of our customers on the floor. We don't have empty sales floors. And we can feel confident in the brands that we've chosen to work with that, yeah, they're not looking out for us, but like we've looked out for ourselves so that they can make those changes. And it's good for us. Yeah, great. Like, let's make that bike 8 grand. We'll sell more of them. It's fantastic. And we'll turn the ones that we have and we'll reorder them at the adjusted MSRP and it'll work out great.
As long as you have that agreement in place that when they adjust the price. So
yep.
is at what level of brand that you're working with are those agreements in place? Do you, at a certain level, I'd imagine that there's some, and I don't know all the brands that you carry in the store. So I would imagine, like, let's call them boutique brands or smaller scale brands aren't willing to walk into those agreements with you.
It's
right.
The other way around. So we have, typically it's the smaller brands that are willing to do that for us.
Oh, wow.
And it's kind of one of those things where you'll say like, hey, this is what I need from you. And they go, oh, we don't change our prices anyway, so you should be worried about it. And you go, well, then sign it. If it's not
right.
you don't change, then it's like, this doesn't mean anything to you. Who cares? Thanks for making me happy. But yeah, we've done it with small brands and we did it with big brands. We did like a really big closeout order where I feel like to have a successful 2024, we need to have stuff on sale and we need to have new stuff. And we need to make sure every single thing that we're selling has great margin. So we need to place closeout orders so we have sale bikes in the stores for our customers because they're seeing sales like crazy, right?
Yeah. It seems like every consumer is conditioned now to buy it on sale.
Yeah. And I think if you're going in there with enough volume, you can say like, this is what my ask is. Right. And yeah, we've had big brands participate also.
Wow.
And they've had to honor those agreements.
I hope it works out.
Thanks. It's non-normal, and that's not going to carry on, I don't think, for the future. But I think that really just like highlights how much leverage retailers that we're still spending have.
Sure. And it goes to show, like, with the position that people, I'm sure there's some really good closeout options because it sounds like there's a lot of inventory out there for a lot of stuff. You kind of touch on like the whole price and that relationship between the retailer and the brand and how they deal with price. And something we've talked about before is like the MAP policies, and that's something that comes up in both outdoor brands and cycling brands. Can you just give me like the layman's of what a MAP policy is, and then what you think are the kind of the downsides and the issues and the problems that are happening right now with MAP policies from brands?
Yeah, so MAP policy, like, it's a minimum advertised price policy. So brands will say you can't advertise this product below this price on XYZ channels. What you do in your own store, the tag you put on the bike in the store is out of their control. It's illegal to do that. I think it's actually semi-illegal to actually have MAP policies in Canada anyway, but it's a little bit all over the place. And yeah, I think in the past it was used to make sure that everybody had somewhat of a level playing field. Everyone's selling the same price. You don't have somebody in your market selling stuff and marketing it, 20% off all year. And you, as that person competing with them, has to choose whether or not you're going to match.
Right.
And it's probably not worth it sometimes. Yeah. So that's what they are. And what I feel like the biggest challenge they're hindering us with now is a lot of the times, like, brands will violate their own MAP policy to put stuff on sale. It handcuffs probably our biggest tool to move stock that's not selling through. Like, we don't discount stuff that sells through.
Why
it doesn't. It's like it's a non-issue. But when we made a bad guess on a certain product that we thought it was going to sell through, and now we have it and it's not. We don't have that opportunity to tell people that it's on sale. And so it hurts our ability to move through product. It hurts our ability to reinvest in those brands. It's not what it used to be. Like, I think at one point in time, it served a tool to, combat, people that just always mark stuff down. They were probably bad. They had bad buying. They were overstocked, continued to do it, and just like rinse and repeat process. And now, if anything, it's probably just hurting brands from a standpoint of people are tied up, they have their cash tied up in product from you that's not selling through. And then you want to hold their feet to the fire a little bit, like, well, you can't advertise it as being cheaper, but I still need you to take that order that you placed a month and a half ago. Like, well, with what cash?
Right.
It's so much more complicated than I think it looks on the surface. It's
like complicated for the brand side?
It's complicated for everybody. Like,
Right.
I think it's we've gone on this journey of like, hey, we need to have a map calendar from all of our brands so that we know when we can do markdowns.
Sure.
We can advertise it when they're, and kind of one of the biggest things we need to do when they're going to do markdowns, so we can choose to compete with the person that we bought product from.
Which is crazy, but go ahead.
And so we need to have a calendar of like all the brands that we stock and all their map policies and what the rules are. And for all of us to get that information is super hard. I can't click on someone's B2B portal. There's maybe one or two people. I can click on their B2B portal and actually pull out a map policy with detailed map windows where we can discount what's included, what's not included, etc. And I'll share like a map experience we had not too long ago where we had a brand say, hey, you're violating map on these products. And it was a screenshot of our website. And I said, okay, thanks for telling me. Let's get this fixed. What bikes are they? And they go, I can't tell you what bikes they are. Wait a second. You can't tell me what bike I'm violating my own, like your map policy on, but you want me to just change it. So it was just an interesting experience of
like, what was the screenshot of?
Their product on our website on sale.
Oh, but like all of the products. It was like, and
yeah.
You're like, okay, which one of these are breaking map? And they were like,
exactly.
We're not sure.
So yeah, it was an interesting experience. I think it really just highlights like it's way more complicated, and I think there's a better way to do it. I don't know exactly what it is, but having blanket no discount rules doesn't work.
Right.
And we have some distributors with like our map policy is that there are no discount windows, period.
Never on sale?
Never on sale.
So you can put it on sale. So just to clarify, map policy means you can put it on sale in your store, but you cannot post a flyer, post an ad, put it in the newspaper, put it on Facebook, nothing publicly.
Or have it listed on our website with a sale price. Right.
Website, of course, sure. But if somebody happens to be in the store, you can mark it down and have a big sign in your store that says it's,
And I think every customer's purchasing journey starts by visiting your website.
Sure.
And so hey, I'm looking at product X. I don't see that it's on sale. What's the difference between that person coming in and buying it if they can see that it's on sale or not? It's a big differentiator.
Like, at what level are map policies coming into play? I can speak for, I have a brand and we don't have a map policy because there's so much of a mess in managing it that I can't be bothered. So at what level do you find brands are like, we're into map, and is there kind of a threshold where below that they're like, we trust you, just do what you need to do? Or is it everybody?
It's everybody. Like, everyone has one.
Everybody has a map policy. So I'm the only loser without a map policy is what you're saying?
Yeah, maybe. And every brand kind of treats it a little bit differently, like how they manage it and how they tell you, and whatever.
It's like boilerplate their lawyer gave them.
Yeah, and it's different for everybody. And some the way I would love it to happen is like, we've marked something down, and someone just picks up the phone and goes, "Hey, help me understand what's going on with your inventory, and how else can we help you?" Like, if I don't want my stuff on sale, it's not like don't use the stick with your partners, like partners,
right?
Air quotes. Yeah, let's figure let's come up with a solution where I can get inventory in here that I know is moving, and I can get out of the inventory I know isn't. And maybe you have other channels where that's a successful product. Hopefully you do. But I would much rather do it that way of like, let's collaborate on a solution to this instead of someone just saying, oh, you can't do that, but you need to sell that inventory.
Hearing you say all this, it really sounds like a technology problem. I mean, I know there's bigger things to it, but really it's a technology problem. So if there's any industrious people in software who want to right-size the bike industry and outdoor industry in general, come up with this amazing elastic suite for it's like a B2B for map policies, and it's like, boom, here it is. That would be problem solver.
I had written a LinkedIn post not long about my feelings about map policy, and it was kind of one of the solutions I had suggested, where it's get everybody data sharing with each other. That's easy. Everyone, I mean, I don't know how to whatever. I'm not a data whiz, but it seems relatively
It's easy for somebody.
It's easy for someone else. Yeah, let's get all of our data in a system. Let's go look at it. What's selling through, what's not selling through, and let's come up with a plan where odds are pretty good. Like if Ridley Cycle isn't selling this shoe, odds might be pretty good that we're not the only ones.
Right.
And if we are the only ones, let's also address that and say, here's probably why. But yeah, let's get all the data together. And I have an assumption too that the same stuff that we're not checking out is the same stuff that their own direct-to-consumer website's not checking out either.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to move it just like we do.
Yeah.
So let's make a decision. Let's mark that down. Let's get rid of it and never order it again. But it just it has to be so much more collaborative than what feels like it's not a positive interaction with the brand. It's not helpful.
And this is where I'll interject is my promotion for small brands. And this is where I think, because a lot of our listeners will be kind of from the smaller brand side, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this kind of collaboration and partnership is something that smaller brands and retailers can bring to the table or work with each other on, where you get less of that when you're working with a publicly traded company. Yes, we don't have smaller brands don't have the technology or the human resources to be able to like push through big projects. But as far as like relationship and kind of structuring deals, it's so much nicer sometimes to be able to deal with a more nimble system. Is that your experience where when you think about the pluses and minuses of working with smaller up and coming brands, or is that one of the pluses and what are the minuses that I'm not recognizing in that situation?
Yeah, I think so. It's probably more of just like how you treat your retailers. And like you would rather just phone somebody up and be like, hey, how do I help you with this? Not stop doing that. Here's the fall winter 24 catalog. Looking forward to your order, right? Yeah. So I think and it's probably a symptom of being small is you have to be so much more creative.
Yeah.
It's not a sort of like drop in the bucket customer. Every customer matters so much more. Every
purchase or every order is very significant, which is great. It's an important place to be in.
And so I think anytime like anybody has those challenges, it's just figuring out how you make it a win for everybody. And it's just like it's probably culture. Like it's your corporate culture. This is how we want you to deal with our customers. This is how we do stuff. This is how we want you to talk to them.
Larger companies, you're always further away from the real decision makers. And that's one thing I say when working with retailers. I love working with independent retailers because you get to do business with the owners. You get to do business with the people who actually get to make decisions. You have those conversations and those emails, and those are really important. Same is true from the brand side. The smaller the brand, the closer you are from a retail side, the closer you get to work with the decision makers and with the people who get to have that.
Yeah.
In between,
that's how you build like lasting relationships.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's how you build like mutual commitment. Where like we can all win together. Yeah. But when someone doesn't feel like they're winning anymore, and the other person doesn't care, like your relationships are fragile.
Yeah, you're familiar with lifetime value. Like for e-commerce, you have the LTV, which is the lifetime. Are you familiar with lifetime value? I just assumed that you were. Okay.
You can explain it.
Okay. So lifetime value is essentially the total amount of revenue that a customer spends in your store. So LTV, lifetime value, is a very common metric in e-commerce. Basically, because if you're going to be spending a bunch of money in customer acquisition, you want to know A, what my customer acquisition costs are, but also B, how long are they going to be, what are the average order values, plus how often do they come back and order for me? So we think about lifetime value. You can structure your whole e-commerce world around lifetime value of the customer and then segment accordingly. And I think it's a really good way to look at your customer base from a lifetime value standpoint. Not in the way of like, oh, if they're below this, I don't care about them, but in the sense of like, oh, the 80-20 principle here, we should probably focus on this very important 20% of the customer base who may actually end up making 80% of our revenue, which is often the case. But we don't think about lifetime value very much in wholesale business. So from a brand side, selling to the retailer, and I did the exercise a few months ago of like going back historically, like 7 years and running the lifetime value of my retail accounts. It was shocking. Like it was such a good exercise to do. First of all, like I never take any of my customers for granted, for sure. But it was really interesting to see that total number over, a long number, 2 seasons a year for 7 years. I was like, oh my God. Okay. This puts it in perspective. This is really, and some things really came to the surface in that time. So yeah, lifetime value from a retail side, you can do the same thing for lifetime value with the customers, but from the brand side, it's really important too, to really see that. I'm not going to prioritize my relationships based on what those numbers are, but it just makes it really clear every order matters because they all add up over time. There's some sleepers. I found some sleepers in there that I was like, oh, wow,
Nice.
That's impressive. I didn't realize that over time.
Yeah. Well, I think that helps give, your optics on like what every order is worth and why like laying a foundation to a great relationship with a partner is so important.
Yeah.
And why, hey, I might have to make this decision that hurts me, but in the grand scheme of thing of all the business we've done together and what we've had to do, it's pretty reasonable.
I've had to have those conversations in the last month. I've had more conversations like that than I would like to, basically because we have, people are in higher inventory. My product right now is a cold weather dependent toque, right? Like if it's not cold, they just don't sell. People are over inventoried. So that affects preseason orders for the future. Yeah. And it's really amazing what happens to a relationship when you tell somebody, like, oh, I'm sorry, the order's down, or even like, hey, I want to order this much, but I'm sitting on this much inventory. What should I do? And when you just say you shouldn't order it and we should just like work through it and we're going to revisit it again next year, sucks, to say that, because it's basically I'm saying goodbye to revenue. But at the same time, if we go back to that lifetime value chart, I'm like, it's good. We're fine. We're going to work it out. You've been a customer of mine for X number of years. I know you're going to be my customer for the future. And it's all going to work itself out in the wash. We just got to get through the lean year.
Yeah. And maybe maybe you can get both. Like maybe you can go to them and say, hey, I can offer you X amount of markdown dollars. Let's mark down those hats to 60 off, 70 off. And let's put that credit against your PO for next fall, winter.
Yeah. It's a creative way to do it.
There's all sorts of ways to do it where you can, everyone can come out with a win. Or like best case scenario.
Better. Yeah. No, that's true. That's a good point. So in your former life, you were a sales rep, and that's kind of like in the conversation of between brands and retailers. There's this group of people in the middle called sales reps. What's your perspective on, you've come from that world and now you're on the retail side. There's been a lot of changes in the world of sales reps. Like, what are your thoughts on the future of sales reps and what role they play for specifically independent bike dealers, but also for outdoor dealers?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think I've learned so much from working for retail that I feel like if I were to rep again, I'd be 10 times stronger than I was before, because I have such a better understanding of their business now. And that's something, I look back on, decisions I made or how I treated customer, like whatever it is. I was like, oh my God, there's so many ways I could have done that better, or so many ways I could have used our time to more value. That's all backwards, but I think sales reps are in such a hard position because you're batting for both teams. And that's a tough place to be, where you're like, okay, ultimately, like I work for the brand's paying me, but I only get paid when I get orders from this person over here, if you're an agent. And so I think it's a hard place for them to be. And I really think you have to add value, and adding value to each of your customers is going to be different. And I think if you were to ask yourself as a sales rep, who would pay $1,000 for me to be their sales rep, is a really hard question about like, okay, what's $1,000 worth? Like, what do I need to do to earn $1,000 in pay from a retailer? I need to do XYZ thing to make their business so much stronger. And so I think it's anything from helping really getting to the heart of things. I think it's asking for more. It's being creative about your sales opportunities. And I think right now it's like creating open to buy. And creating open to buy is really hard. I would say it's probably one of the hardest things as a sales rep. Like, you go in and your job is like, it's your sales and your job title. You're there to try and move more stuff. And sometimes it's going to be, how do I help you get rid of these products to help you buy the new stuff? Like, we all want that. I want to have the newer stuff. I don't want to have this old stuff hanging around. But it's stuck here, and until it's gone, I'm somewhat handcuffed in what I can offer, or what I can purchase from somebody. So I think, yeah, it's anything going in, identifying what are the opportunities with the retailer I'm working with? What are the opportunities I have to make their business better? How do I offer more value? And how does the product I'm selling help solve their problems or help them get to whatever the long-term goal is for them?
Yeah, it's understanding the business side too. Like you said, like your experience on the retail side, you have a much more a broader, probably deeper understanding too of like, oh, right, this is what a retailer struggles with, and this is what a retailer's thinking about, and this is how a retail business needs to work. And sometimes if you're on the brand or the rep side, we don't know those things. It's just a different financial perspective that comes with like seeing inventory turn multiple times and like, oh, okay, that's what we need. We need inventory turns.
Totally. Yeah. And I even think like, yeah, if I were to go do it again, I'd be like, can you give me a backend login to your website so I can upload all my product for you? Because that takes time and it takes money for someone to go in and do that if you don't have those systems automated or can't do a Excel sheet master file dump. Like, how do you get, hey, I recognize this is an important channel for you. I want all my products to be on here. Let me do this for you. And you're also selling your products at the same time, but it's not as measurable. But it makes a huge difference when you're willing to like really help a retailer move the needle for their business in general and for your brand.
They're easy to hate on because they are, not hate on, but be a punching bag sometimes because they are in the middle. And I get that. It's tough. So I'm trying to think about like the white space that gets created in retail for the smaller up and coming brands and how could, like a core member or just anybody who's kind of launching their brand or in the early stage startup, like what is it that a retailer is looking for from a brand? And that doesn't necessarily mean the specifics of like the technology that they're bringing, but in the sense of what does it mean to be a good partner to them? What is it that you want to see a small brand bring to the table? And how should they be thinking about approaching retailers like Ridley's to sell their products into the store, maybe for the first time?
That's a great question. I think as with anything, like everybody started, like a customer walks into our store, it's because they have a problem. They want something, they don't have something, they need something, whatever, right? My next bike ride needs to be better because I didn't have XYZ thing. And we need to know that story from the brand too. You make hats. We make hats because somebody wants to look better. Somebody likes the way that they look in the hat. Their head's cold. Their kid's head's cold. Like, what is it that we're doing here? How does our product do it? And how is it a positive for you to choose this brand over something else? And that could be because it's made in Canada. It could be because the margin is 80%, like whatever the things are. But yeah, knowing your story, knowing what you're doing, knowing where you're going, like what does this long-term investment look like? Or is this kind of like a one-off, let's capture it while it's hot kind of thing? That happened with high pivot bikes, by the way. And yeah, I think it's all that kind of stuff, but it's really that story. And I think you connected us with the guy that makes the bear spray holders,
Ghost Rider equipment.
Yeah. And it was this great thing of like, okay, we've done it, like we had bear cozies forever or whatever. Is this good? But he came up with a product that solved a problem that we all have, but there wasn't a solution for. And on top of that, he made us custom ones. Nice. It was super cool. Like it was, yeah, one of those things where it's like you can support this company at a Fernie, and yeah, he's making something cool from somebody else, and it's fun to support the local small. Like we're proud of that. Probably more proud than we are about, ordering from the big whoever manufacturer that you're just a drop in the bucket for them. When you can be part of someone else's small business and they're trying something out and they're just asking questions and are you interested in something like this? It's more fun and it feels better.
Like how does it benefit the brand to also be in retail, other than the fact that you're giving them money? But how does it help the brand out too?
To have both channels?
Yeah.
Well, I think you have to.
So don't be direct to consumer only. You got to have both.
Well, I think for sure you have to have direct to consumer. I would suggest that you probably need to have that somewhere on your business roadmap of being able to do that, or have some sort of like inventory sharing model where we can ship bikes, right? Hey, we don't do direct consumer, but all of our dealers can ship bikes directly. So on our website, you can see who has it. You can go there, you can buy it. They'll ship it to you, whatever. servicing internet customers is really important. How you do it probably depends on what your business philosophy is. But I think, yeah, like retail has continued to survive for thousands of years. And it doesn't seem like that's going to change a whole ton. And I think it's probably a really great way where if you're starting out your brand or your brand is massive, like your overhead costs are so much lower. You're not spending crazy amount of money on, custom like ads, right? You're not spending crazy amounts of money on all this other stuff. And yeah, you don't have to have all these other staff, all these other channels, shipping, logistics, legal, whatever, just for this direct consumer channel. But as long as you've found a way to serve both customers and everyone's delivering the best possible experience or meeting your expectations of what the experience is, you can do both through the wholesale channel.
I wanted to talk about, because you're on the board of the NBDA National, I'm going to mess it up. What is it? NBDA?
Yeah, it's the National Bicycle Dealer Association.
Okay, cool. So you're on the board of NBDA. I'm really curious about this program. I mean, you could talk about NBDA in general, what that is, but I'm really curious about this program that you're part of called the P2 program. When I heard about it, I was like, I'm really happy that this is happening. I'm really happy retailers out there are doing this. So just chat about what that group is and what that's all about.
Yeah, for sure. So Ridley's is part of two different P2 programs.
Oh.
So one is P2 Canada. So it's called the Profitability Project. Those are the two Ps in P2. We meet once a month with all the other members in our group. We have, it's led by the NBDA president. So we have topics, sheets that we have to fill out. We upload all of our financials, and all of those things are shared with each other. All of our sales, cost of goods, margins,
every month,
staffing costs, everything.
That's cool.
And it's charted against, we can see where everybody's at, where we're charting against, where it's going out for the year. And then we do get data on what the total group averages are. And so there's also 4 other groups in the US, I think.
4 other P2 groups?
Yep.
Okay.
So we get to see how we're doing against other groups also as averages. And it really kind of gives us all an opportunity to form these amazing friendships, which has been probably the most rewarding part of all of it, and share what your biggest challenges are. And all of us are so invested in each other's success that we're meeting next week in Regina. And it's we have to go through everybody's reports, and we filled out board reports, and we've uploaded financials, and we've done, all of our stuff, and we need to filter through it. And when I'm going through this stuff, I'm seeing things where I think you're getting this wrong. And here, I think you need to look at this a different way, or you're way overspending in this place, or my experience has been this. It has been by far the best professional development experience I have ever had.
That's super
to
cool.
go through that. And it's hard. Starting it, I was I don't know how to read a P&L. I've never looked at one before. And it's okay, now I got to speak to it, and someone's going to ask me questions. So I better figure it out. So yeah, we're part of a Canada-specific group, and then there's a P2 Plus group that has retailers that do over $1 million in annual sales, and that's across Canada and the US. And it's been interesting I participated in that group for a little bit and then ended up leaving it. We have one of the business owners at Ridley's is still in it, but that one is just heavily focused on financials. So it's my role is in how every day gets executed. So I wasn't getting all the value I needed out of the group, and so I ended up not participating in it anymore. But yeah, it's, we'll ask each other anything of hey, can you send me how you're, doing this for your service department, or what deals are you getting from this brand, or what was your experience here? And yeah, it's been great to get like-minded people together. We all trust each other, and we're all competitors, really. With the
on the internet,
blurrier marketplace of all of us having websites, we all compete against each other, and that's okay. Yeah, all of the growth comes from putting that aside and actually sharing best practices with each other of how we can each do better, and then calling each other shit too when we got it wrong.
That's cool. So you're not meeting in person every month, just occasionally in person?
So we meet in person twice a year.
Okay.
And we go to the stores of each of the members.
Oh.
And part of that exercise also is a store walkthrough, and we have to write down what we score them on, all these different sections, and then have a feedback session of here's what you need to do better, here's what I liked, here's what you have to do better, whatever. It's intense.
You were cleaning bathrooms the day before they showed up. You're let's get this thing deep clean, kids.
Yeah, you're you gotta do everything you can to make this the least painful as possible. But it's amazing. Like, you get people coming in with fresh eyes saying like, hey, this isn't good enough. This is what you need to do better. Or I really like this. I'm going to do this in my store. Or I took pictures of this, or whatever that stuff is. So yeah, it's an amazing opportunity. It's hard. And that's part of like the trust you have to put into the rest of the members too, is like, it's hard for everybody.
Like hard in the sense of the vulnerability is hard, or hard in the sense that it's like a lot of work?
Well, I think it's some work. I don't think it's an unreasonable amount of work. But yeah, you don't get your work done, you get called out by everybody else.
Sure.
And I think one of the things that it does really well too is it creates accountability for the business owners when they don't necessarily have somebody doing that for them. And not everybody likes it, right? Some business owners aren't into it. And then it also creates other challenges for me where like, I'm not the business owner and I'm there representing it. And not all those decisions are mine. And I have to be able to speak to all that stuff. So yeah, it creates accountability amongst the group and gets, business owners to kind of be like, okay, if I have to do this presentation to this hypothetical board of directors for my business, what does this look like now? And people that tell you it has to be better.
I think it's so important. I was a part of a group for all sorts of different business owners, entrepreneur organization when I lived in Alberta. And it's great. Like just having some type of mastermind or some type of group where you pull back the kimono and it's full reveal of everything good and bad in the business, I think is super important, and have those regular check-ins. Like you learn a lot about what you can improve on. That is for sure. When you have other people, especially different eyes set on your business. Yeah.
It's amazing. And I think, I don't know if if that exists in the outdoor industry or not.
I don't know if buying groups like grassroots, I don't know if they're just doing buying group discount type stuff, or are they doing kind of that mentorship programs as well? Not mentorship programs, but masterminds or whatever. I don't know. It would be amazing if they were, but I think about it even within, the core network, and just being able to create kind of small groups of business owners, founders, general managers, whomever it is that are, fully invested in the businesses and want to drive things further. Yeah. And getting vulnerable with your financial statements is, it's for real.
It is for real, and it's hard, and it's scary, and it's but you should do it. I mean, it's hard. Like, someone has to stand up there in front of the board, right, with a whiteboard, with the marker, and run the show.
Sure.
But you also don't have to be the person with all the answers.
Right. The answers in the group.
The answers in the group, and that's kind of the way that we have it. Is, okay, we have these topics, and this is what we have to work on. You need to prepare this presentation, and then I won't say all that Heather does, because what Heather does is amazing, and it takes a ton of guts to stand up there in front of a bunch of people and lead the session. But her job is to keep us on track,
sure, and
on topic, and coming up with solutions. But it's not her job to have the answers,
right? Yeah, I mean the answers amazing. In the group. I think that's it's always there. You just got to have it. That's great. I'd love to see more of those, and I'm sure they're out there. I'd love to know more about other programs and that's very cool that NBDA puts that on. So I guess I want to wrap it up here. What are your priorities for yourself and for Ridley's in the next 12 to 18 months? Like where do you see things going, and what are you really focusing on?
Yeah, we're focusing on cleaning up inventory, because it's gonna be a hard year of cleaning up stock that we've held on for a long time.
So you're saying it's a good time to go buy a bike?
It's probably the best time to
go
buy a bike.
So everybody who bought a bike in 2021 and 2022 at the peak are just kicking themselves right now because that bike is $4,000 cheaper.
Maybe you've gotten so much value out of that too in those 2 years that you've gotten to go get healthy and have fun outside, and there's so much more value in it too than Are you a salesperson? Yeah,
that was good. Well done.
It's I don't know. You can treat it like your car. Like, your car depreciates, and that's a bummer. It's just the way that it goes, right? Yeah, we're really focusing on inventory, and then one thing that we're really focusing on too is getting our mission sorted out.
Oh wow!
What are we doing? Where are we going? What's the point? And then getting everybody on board. And I think it's it was something that I tried really hard to work on with the business when I first started. We weren't able to get there. I feel like we just kind of chased each other around in circles a little bit. But now we're getting to a point where everyone recognizes the importance of that. And that's kind of how you set the expectations every day. This is what we're doing. This is how we do it. This is how we treat our customers.
Wow.
This is how we make decisions all the time. And everyone has to be on board. And I think it's an amazing tool because it creates just super clear expectations with everybody. And it's do you want to come with us?
Nice.
Maybe you don't, that's okay. but we
That's
love
critical.
it if you came, and this is what it takes. So yeah, we're going through a little bit of that right now too, and I think we'll come out of the other end of it in way better shape. And I think it'll be harder, but also easier.
Cool. Well, that's great. I think that's awesome. I mean, that segues nicely into the last question I like to ask people is, how do you define success for yourself?
I know you put this question down, and it's not something I'm good at. And I don't know. Yeah, it, causes me lots of stress all the time of like, what's good enough and what's good enough for myself. But I really think I almost kind of want to look at it as like, how do you feel fulfilled?
Sure.
And for me, like success is probably feeling fulfilled in what I do for work and feeling fulfilled with my family.
Awesome.
And yeah, for me, it's like I have to be challenged. It has to be hard.
With your kids at home?
With work. It doesn't have to be hard with the kids all the
Sorry,
time. Even though it is, like with a 5 and 7 year old, it's hard, but it always changes. I get my best work done when it's hard, and when it's not hard, or like we're not focusing on something big, it's hard. It's harder for me to like keep pushing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like, okay, what's the next big challenge? How are we going to get there? Let's come up with the plan. Let's figure out in 18 months we're going to be in position A. What are all the steps all the way back that we need to start doing tomorrow to get there? And that's, I think for me, like how I define success is like being fulfilled at work and in my personal life, and being able to ride my bike and see my friends, and have great relationships with people and meaningful conversations. And I'm not a complicated person.
Perfect. That's what I love. Success is not one size fits all. So we all have to define our own version of it and then get after it, and then make sure that we don't move the goalposts on ourselves. Thanks, man. It's good. It's always good to chat with you, but I really appreciate you. Your insights. And if you don't follow Greg on LinkedIn, you should, because he's always posting insightful thoughts of how he sees the industry and his perspectives. And I really appreciate it, man. So thanks.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Good luck with the podcast.
Thanks for listening to the show. If you know someone who would enjoy this episode, please share it with them. If you enjoyed it, take 30 seconds to give us a review on your podcast player. Ratings and reviews go a long way in spreading the word about the show. It takes hours to create an episode and only 30 seconds to leave a review. We'd really appreciate it. To learn more about CORE, visit coreoutdoors.org. That's KORE outdoors.org. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.